Welcome.
Welcome to Industry of Impact. Are you asking the right questions? Am I getting technical knowledge and expertise?
I am with AMI.
Am I getting the right solution for my company?
I am with AMI.
Am I getting a trusted partner?
I am with AMI.
So, who are you with?
I am with AMI.
I am with AMI.
I am with AMI.
Are you? Go to automatedmarketing.com.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to Industry of Impact. This is a LinkedIn Live series and podcast that is really meant to shine a light on people who are making a positive impact on people, on companies, and communities. From industrial to tech, food and bev, consumer goods, there are people out there who are doing really good things for others. And the bottom line is we just love talking to them. I think there's a quote by Carl Sagan that sums up personally why I think we do Industry of Impact. And that is, who are we if not measured by the impact on others? And our hope is that with each guest, including our today's guest, you'll connect with them directly and that you'll walk away from this episode with some inspiration, some ideas, and maybe some actionable steps to enhance and improve your business and your life. So that being said, my name is Mark Berger, and I'm the VP of Marketing for AMI. My co-pilot today is AMI CEO, Julian Meir, and our guest today, which we're stoked and super excited about, is none other than the manufacturing millennial, Jake Hall.
Awesome. It's great to be here, guys.
So good to have you. I think you're enjoying yourself, right? You're somewhere more remote than normal.
Yeah. I'm out of my home office that has like robots and 3D printers normally behind me, and I'm out overlooking a peaceful lake now. So up in the cottage, getting some stuff done up here. So it's definitely a step away from manufacturing, but at the same time, it's great to still have conversations about it.
And like we were talking about a little bit earlier, it's probably more of a reflection of the world today, that you can be staring at a lake and having conversations that are business related, industry related. So yeah, it's definitely a representation of how things are today.
Yeah.
Before we kind of get into some of the nitty gritty, I've got to bring up that you're an alumni of is Grand Valley State. Am I right?
Yeah.
Grand Valley State Lakers. And I would imagine you're following it, but your team is undefeated in D2 right now in football, and you just won the last round. You guys are headed to, I think it's like the regional final.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got like 3 more wins and you win the whole thing. So I'm curious, December 3rd against, who is it? The Ferris State Bulldogs, who are 11-1. Give me your take. What's going to happen?
Yeah. So it's actually really funny because you're talking about the cottage, right? So I live in Grand Rapids, which is where Grand Valley's at. And the cottage where I live is in Big Rapids, which is where Ferris State University is located. So my cottage is in Ferris State. They're at 11-1. They have an absolutely amazing welding engineering program here at Ferris. So I'm an alumni of GVSU. So of course I'm going to go with who my alumni is, the Lakers. I think we've won Ferris State won the national championship last year.
Oh, okay.
And so I went to Grand Valley, and I was going to Grand Valley, and a few years before I attended there, Brian Kelly was the coach of the Grand Valley Lakers. So he's currently the coach of LSU, who's playing Georgia, right?
Georgia.
This weekend.
Yeah.
He beat Saban already. So playing Georgia. Before that, he was at Notre Dame. Before that, he was at Cincinnati, I think, and then Eastern and Grand Valley. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Grand Valley's got a great engineering program, but some great D2 athletics as well.
Nice.
Cool.
Now, and also, let's get the elephant out of the room, because we know by following you, you're a huge Cubs fan. But down here at H-Town.
Oh man, you know what? I have one of their logos as well. Let me grab it real quick.
And I'm very curious. Hopefully, you still hear me.
Mark, I think we also have.
Look, it's a Houston. It's a Houston. Right? Isn't that your mascot?
What are you going to say when Contreras is behind the plate for us?
Not to throw any hate towards any of our previous people for being on, because I'm super grateful for everybody. I have to say that was the best comedic moment we've had. So you take the prize, Jake.
Well, if we're getting close to the end and we need to know what we're going to go, you might hear a. And just to know what's coming next, Mark.
What's coming next is another championship ring.
So I think
all right.
Nikki Gonzalez also has said hello to all of us.
Nikki.
Nikki, thanks for joining on and listening in. Jake, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background? And you can start wherever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to start with, I've been in the manufacturing industry for like 16 years now. Started out when I was in high school working for a custom machine builder, sweeping the shop floors, doing the gritty work of cleaning machines, wiping things down, cutting metal, deburring, acetoning it, doing all that stuff. So it's started out kind of doing the grunt work for a couple years when I was in high school, went to college. As we talked about, I got my product design and manufacturing engineering degree and biomedical engineering degree. So got that side of the education, and then went into industrial distribution for like 7 years. Sold PLCs, robotics, vision systems, motion control, and really got a lot of experience because in West Michigan, we really have a diversified industry. It's not just automotive. There's a lot of medical. There's a lot of wood. There's a lot of food and pharma and bio. So I had a lot of good experience seeing all that stuff. Then did that for like 6-7 years. Then 2020 during the pandemic happened. A few big things happened for me. One is I started the manufacturing Millennial. So that's been going on for a couple years now, which I know we'll talk about later on probably today. But then I switched companies to a company called Fine Zelstra. We're an industrial tech informations-based company. So anytime you have PLC, SCADA, MES, high-level info-based systems, we're solutions for that. And then our group, our industrial tech group, was sold the last month. So now I'm a business development manager for a global company called ATS Global, and we're in like 27 countries, I think, or something like that. I'm still learning the details as we go through. But so now I'm a BDM for them for the US market and doing that stuff. So I work with that team, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm going to shows and conferences and talking to people and doing webinars like this and trying to advocate manufacturing and skilled trades and all the cool automation and technology that's behind it.
Cool. Very cool.
And that's what the manufacturing Millennial is all about, right?
Yes.
About that advocacy, about the next generation and generations to come with regard to manufacturing and engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into the fall of 2019, we'll get a little more detail on the manufacturing Millennial. Fall of 2019, I was attending a conference, and I was sitting in a room of about 400 other professionals in the manufacturing industry. And I looked across this room and I said, I am the only person here under the age of 40 in attendance. This is crazy. And so when that happened, I was like, there is a massive underrepresentation of younger generations in our industry. And I really didn't notice it until I sat there, because West Michigan has so many amazing engineering young schools and young startups. Like, there's so many companies in West Michigan that have come out of Grand Valley and other schools that we're a very unique situation for what is actually represented across North America and the U.S. So I said, I'm a millennial. I'm in manufacturing. I'm going to be the manufacturing millennial. And yeah, Nikki got it right. AHTD was the conference that I went to. And so I said, I'm just going to start doing what millennials do. And that's, we love social media. We love content. We love video. We love, at a sense, kind of being a very outspoken, talkative generation. And I just started just sharing content in a way. And if you were to go back to my videos, gosh, back in like March, April of 2020, they're horrendous. They are really, really, really bad. But I think what we're seeing now is that manufacturing needs to change in order to attract a new generation. I think that changes by the way we adapt new technology. We change the culture of manufacturing. We change the way we attract a more diverse group into manufacturing of women and minorities and diversity. And I think that that's done by technology. I think the technology is the common ground in that area, because you can, with a platform, share a lot more. And so when I started sharing content, there was no intent. And I know we kind of talked about this before we got things kicked off. There was no intent to say, I'm going to go and try and get as many followers or people as I can. And I still don't, I'm still not trying to chase a number of stuff. I think, I was told like I passed 50,000 followers a couple weeks ago. I had no idea, because I don't check that. But it was really exciting to see how the community wants to have people who advocate the industry. The community wants to have people, and the industry wants to have people who share new technology, who share their ideas, who want to say, this is what needs to change in the industry. And I've just been very blessed to be one of those people. And there's many others out there that are doing just as good of a job, if not a lot of them are doing a better job than I am. And it's really exciting to see how the industry has changed in the past year or two.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's super interesting. It's like, it's one of these things where it's in our day to day, unless you're super involved in this manufacturing and industrial world, people don't really think about it. But, the whole population doesn't realize that without some kind of bridge happening here, like all of the things that they just take for granted that show up at their doorstep, that run the back end of our day-to-day lives, there's a major transitional issue here. And I think it's really cool to see that you've kind of taken that whole sector under your wing and started moving it forward. Yeah. And we need people, who are peers to these people that we're trying to attract into this industry.
And I think what we just need to do is, there's a statistic I always love to throw out there, where a interview went out to a bunch of parents and basically came back to say like 75% of parents agree that manufacturing is dramatically important for our future economy and our national security. Like it's a necessary industry. Yet when they said, would you be willing to have your kid be in the industry? Only 2 out of 10 said yes. And so here we view manufacturing as a necessity here in North America, yet our kids we don't want our kids to be a part of it. And I think that's just because there's this misconception that manufacturing still is this dark, dirty, dangerous. And I say still, that still is because it was at one point in time. There was a point between like the 60s to the early 90s that you saw manufacturing going overseas. Manufacturing culture-wise was not great. And that's where a lot of like my parents saw their parents living in and working, and they said, I don't want to be a part of that. And they don't want their kids to be a part of that either. So I think we need to, as an industry, dispel the myth that it's just this dark, dirty, dangerous industry that, hey, only men are a part of, and say, no, that's not the case anymore. It's an industry that has a lot of technology. It's an industry that has a lot of innovation and new technologies like AI and machine learning and advanced robotics, and the way we handle data and process data and visually present data, which is kind of like what I'm doing over at ATS. It's exciting. But what's more exciting about it is then you can see, as we make the industry more diverse, we make the industry a lot more appealing to people who were once not a part of it. And I think one of the great things is, I was talking to a woman when I was speaking at Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I spoke at the Iowa Manufacturing Conference, the CBJ Iowa Manufacturing Conference, and flew out to Iowa to speak to them. And there was an amazing speaker out there who talked about how do you change the way you do manufacturing, the way you do business to attract future people. And I think, one of the greatest things I saw out there was her company is doing 4 amazing things that she works at. One is they started offering daycare before and after the school and manufacturing. So for a lot of these larger manufacturers, it might not make sense for a manufacturer that has 15 or 20 employees. But when you see a lot of these larger size manufacturers and they say, why can't we get people? They're offering before and after service daycare. And on top of that, they registered with the public schools then to make that area a pickup and drop off point. So now all of a sudden they can bring the kids to school. They can go into work at the time they need. They can hang out there in that area. Then they get picked up to school. They go to school and then they get brought back. So when their parents get off of work, they can do that. Now all of a sudden you're taking maybe the single mom or the working mom who wasn't able to do this type of job before, and you're making that available.
Wow.
They're also looking at doing, they're doing 3 3-day work weeks. So they were working 3 12-hour shifts. And that's actually pretty common a lot of times in the medical industry. If you look at what nurses are doing and stuff, it's just manufacturing is never viewed that way. So what happens if a manufacturer, if you're working 2 shifts, what if you just did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you had 2 shifts working 12s, and all of a sudden a person can have a 4-day weekend. That's a massive, I would say attraction to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one was simply providing transportation. Like when the survey went out, I can't remember if it was by Deloitte or Gartner, so don't quote me on it, but there was a study out there that says the number one reason why people in manufacturing don't show up to work when they're scheduled is because they can't find the transportation to get there.
Wow.
So what if we were, as an industry, went above and beyond to serve communities that might not always have a reliable car to get there?
Yeah.
And do that. And, so that's the big thing, for me, Mark and Julia, is I'm not out there creating the biggest change and like coming up with all these fantastic philosophies. What I love to do is share what companies are doing and changing to drive more awareness on how our industry can change and how our industry can be more culturally accepting. And I think, we could do that with the way we treat people, the way we attract people, but also technology, the way we use technology to make us as an industry more attractive, but at the same time, more productive.
Yeah.
If we want jobs to come back overseas to North America, we got to be more productive in how we do those jobs. It's not just that we just going to hire more workers. We will never be able to hire enough workers. Like that's just the state of the fact. We will never get enough people in manufacturing to say we have all of our jobs fulfilled. It's never going to happen, especially when we see all the baby boomers retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, and we're just never going to have a younger generation. I think it's just one of those things where we need technology in a way that's going to make us more productive, and it's going to make the people who are in industry stay there longer.
Yeah, interesting. So are you kind of seeing that shift then where the jobs that are being produced within manufacturing are leaning more heavily towards this technology side rather than the standard what people think of as a manufacturing job? Is that changing a lot to make these manufacturing environments more efficient?
Yeah, I think it's definitely shifting that way. Is it over half, not even close? I think there was like a number out there, sort of between 70 to 78% of manufacturing still manual.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're all of a sudden hearing that robots are just taking all these jobs. And I'm like,
right.
The majority of manufacturing is still a very manually intensive industry. And I think what a lot of times what we're doing is automation and technology is here to enable the worker to have an easier job, to make it so they stick around longer, so they have better retention. When you look at technology that just enables the worker to be more productive, that's our goal.
Mm-hmm.
And we're finding it out right now is that human labor is so important in our industry, and whatever we can do to keep human labor happy in our industry, and I think technology is what's going to make it so people enjoy what they do at work.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I was actually at 2 facilities yesterday. One was a smoked fish facility, and another one was a cannabis facility. And you're spot on. These companies, they're smaller regional companies, but they are looking for ways to have their workers be happier, but also be more efficient as a company. And like, especially in the cannabis manufacturing industry, which is, booming everywhere. They are way behind the curve with automation. And so I was seeing it, like their facility, it was, 30 people in a room packing, all of the different things that they do. So, they had like one piece of automation in, and this is what they're trying to do to catch up, because otherwise they can't be profitable and they can't keep people around. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah,
It is.
Maybe this ties into a video I saw of yours on YouTube. I'm curious, how do we attract the younger generation towards this type of career?
Yeah.
And the video I'm referring to was you had interviewed, I think his name was Grayson, and it was someone you interacted with when you were younger,
Yeah.
right? That you were in this Lego league. You coached him, right? In a Lego league.
Yeah.
And it got him, and I think this is kind of your backstory too, really interested in figuring things out, putting things together, right? That type of thing early on. So could you talk a little bit about your experience with Lego League, and then how that or other ways you and others can inspire younger generation to really be attracted towards manufacturing and engineering?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the numbers out there, the greatest impact that you can make on a kid and getting into STEM is before the age of 12 years old. Like, I think that's when, and maybe it's not kid, maybe it's, I think it was like women or something like that, where like the importance of mentoring and reaching the women is like, if they haven't decided that they want to be in a STEM career by 12, they're not going to be in one or something. It's something like that. I can't remember. They're not saying, there's gonna be outliers and all that stuff, but like the massive number of just like, that's the way it is. So, funny you bring up Lego League. So I brought my oldest daughter to her first Lego League competition. She was 4 at the time. Now she's 5. She had her birthday last week. But yeah, we went to her first Lego League competition just because I wanted her to see the excitement. And the really exciting part about that was, we were on the floor, we were going around there, we were watching the robots compete. There's a bunch of different events that happen at Lego League. But the one that she noticed to me is she said, "Dad, that team has all girls." But what's crazy is a 4-year-old sees that. Like a 4-year-old pointed it out to me. I didn't have to point that out to her to say this. And it just shows you at how young of an age that young women see, is this something that other women do and that other girls do? And if you're not being intentional about it, it's never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, so Lego League was an amazing, exciting thing for me. So when I was in high school, I coached a couple of teams. One of those being Grayson was on it. Grayson, I think, was in 7th grade, and I might have been a freshman in college or a senior in high school. It was right around that time frame. But yeah, that was really exciting because that team, we did really well. We won 3 out of the 4 competitions at regionals. We went to state. We got 2nd place at state. We qualified for nationals, but only one team was able to go, so only the first team went. So first place went there. But it was an amazing experience. And now he's a integration engineer for robotics company. I think last time I talked to him, he was going around and he was integrating robotic and automation cells. Wow. And that's just like one of the stories. Another guy I know is a chief developer for launch systems at NASA. Another guy is a rocket development guy. There's another kid I know, Ryan. He's a senior engineer at Tesla. And to think about like they were in 7th grade at the time, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then we coached them all through high school and stuff as well. But like the impact that you can make on these young kids about the excitement of there. And yeah, did every kid I teach go into engineering? No. But I would say though that a majority, I know the majority of the kids that I worked with that I heavily invested in and mentored them all went to school. They went and got skilled trades because a few of them actually went to become a welder. And then a lot of them went to college to get engineering degrees. And it's just like that impact that's investing. The thing is, it's like I didn't do anything special. All I did is I hung out with the kids on Saturdays and twice a week after school, and just gave a couple hours of my time, and it changed their life. And I think that's like, but the barrier to entry for everyone in this industry to support that isn't that much. We're not asking you to be like, you need to be this amazing teacher, you need to be this amazing person that has all these resources, that has all this money. You can get a Lego League team. A lot of times, all the kits funded by the school district or a sponsor, and is donating like 6 to 8 weeks of your time.
Yeah,
creates such a massive impact on kids in the future.
The majority of the battle is showing up.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing with parenting. Be there, show up.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the ideal way every time. But I think you discount, like, I didn't do anything special. No, you really did. Like, you were there. And I think that to me, the manufacturing millennial brand, and then you as a person, you may say, well, I don't have these necessary aspirations to reach this or reach that. But my eyes got so big as I started to consume your content, because I'm like, this dude is showing up. He's showing up in a way that is really appealing and interesting. And it's cool to look at it from you make an impact in the two ways, right? You can inspire the younger generation, but then you turn around and you look at these companies and you look at the baby boomer generation who have been in these jobs for so long, who are getting ready to retire, and advocating towards them. I'm super interested in your take on this, on bringing along the next generation.
Yeah.
Like, do you see or experience challenges in that when you're talking to the guy who's like, look, I've been doing this
all the time, all the time. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I always hear when I go to when I go to speaking events and keynotes and stuff. I talk to people and say, how do you get these generations to work together? Because baby boomers and Gen Xers have a perception, and kind of Gen Xers are kind of in the middle. But baby boomers have this perception of millennials. Millennials have these perceptions of boomers.
Right.
The entire MLB has this perception of the Houston Astros and, not having a World Series win, but we have to explain to them, listen, just because you have different views on it doesn't mean we all don't love the same thing. And that could be baseball and that couldn't be manufacturing, even though you're cheaters. But, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Mark. It's anytime I see a Houston fan, I lay it out. I lay it out to them. I'm not bitter at all. It's not like you beat me, but man, the Tigers were happy about you the first year, and I was rooting for my Phillies with Kyle Schwarber this last year. But anyways, going back to the generations, I think the biggest thing that we need to show is that older generations can have an impact on younger generations by the tribal knowledge that they've gained over time. And then a lot of times they say, well, I don't understand how to do that. I don't want to teach a kid. But that's the great part about technology now, is technology can capture knowledge of older workers in a way that's never been able to be done before. And I think a lot of that times can be with virtual reality, where we can go out there for a maintenance guy who can just listen to a machine and know what's going to fail 4 weeks from now because he has that, that ear. We can now leverage technology in a way that's going to make it so he can communicate with his knowledge that can be captured to be passed on to future generations. And I think the one thing that a lot of older generations want is they want to have that respect in a way. And it goes both ways. Like, that's the biggest thing is, listen, younger generations, millennials and Gen Zs, they need to be respectful of older people and the knowledge they have. And it's one of those things where it's not just me, it's not just you. They got to come together. But I think technology can be a way that helps, build that bridge that was never been able to be accomplished before.
Yeah. I think you brought up a really interesting point before with how we educate younger people coming into this, and how, sponge-like, from the time that people are, 3 to 12, they're so absorbent of everything around that. And how, if you ask most kids, oh, do I enjoy this and that in school? But Lego League is one example, but like gamifying the education to make it fun and exciting for people to be coming into an industry and creating programs that really make it enjoyable and hands-on, I think is super important, because some kid at 8 years old is not going to want to like read engineering books, but if you make it fun and enjoyable, and the teachers have a real passion for it, that changes the game of how people come into it. So I think that's something that needs to be explored a lot more.
And then one thing I want to add to that, it's not just the younger generations that are coming up. It's also the current generations right now who are older millennials, who might not have been in the industry, but manufacturing can now be an attractive industry for them. So like, that's why I encourage manufacturers out there. What are you doing to enable additional further education for them, to pay for them to work for you, but then also go back to school to get a mechatronics associate degree or a PLC tech associate's degree or a robotics programming degree? If we truly want to grow our industry, we can't just invest in the companies. We have to invest in the people at those companies. And it's one of those things. Will Healy made a hilarious post the other day where he took a picture of like Wendy's was like $20 an hour, but they were also offering free food. And it's one of those things is like, and I'm not going to get into the whole economic thing of like where we're at with younger generations not being able to get stuff, that they once would. But we have to realize, though, from a cultural perspective, how people get houses, how people live, how people invest now is completely different than it was 15, 20 years ago. And maybe this is a discussion for, LinkedIn 2.0, like next year sometime we'll hop back on again. But I think what we need to look at is the investment of a person never should stop. And as soon as you stop investing in your people will stop investing in you. And that means working for you, because their time is an investment into that company. So that's just the thing I would encourage is it doesn't stop once they get in the door. Once they get in the door, that's when it truly begins. That would be just my like additional, pin to add to the conversation as we wrap up.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true. People talk, you hear it, and it's just the way that business is portrayed a lot. They talk about businesses, but a business is an inanimate object that's on a piece of paper, and it's actually people. So, you make a great point. It has to be that investment and time allocated to building true relationships with the people. It's 100% spot on.
Awesome. Well, to end it, what do you got going on? I think you have a speaking event next year. What is that, and what else you got going on coming up?
Oh man, I've already booked like 16 events next year.
Wow.
Yeah. So right now I have speaking events in Boston, 3 in Florida, a couple in Canada. Talking possibly about Europe for an event. But yeah, a lot of fun shows that I'm already kicking off. The A3 Business Forum is my first thing. Like that's the second week of January down in Orlando, Florida. That kind of kicks off 2023. Wow. But for the rest of December, I am zero travel. It has been a crazy year. I'm going to make a post like probably next week. I took a photo of all the badges, of all the events. And it was like, there was like 40 of them this year. And I said, holy cow, I was gone a lot this year. Next year is a lot of exciting things in the future. But at the end of the day, it's, hey, one day at a time advocating manufacturing. And that's just, that's what we're going to keep on doing.
If one last thing to wrap up, millennials coming into the manufacturing space, 1 to 3 pieces of advice that you might give them on, whether it's education or who to talk to or, where to go for good information, just any piece of advice you might give your younger self.
Yeah. Number 1, networking is your biggest ally. My father raised me and said, Jake, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yep. And I laughed at him at first, but it is so true today. Relationships and just formed by talking to people. And I continue to do that. I encourage you to do that. Even if you are an introvert, you can network and you can meet people in ways that you're comfortable with. So that's number 1 is that. Number 2 is always go out there with a learning mind. And going out there to continue to grow and educate yourself and to learn what new skills you could do. Number 3, I would say, is listen and have empathy for others. In a world that we are so judgmental on who others are without even knowing what their story is or making a lot of assumptions about who they are, the biggest thing that we could change with our generation for future generations to come is realize that everyone has a story. Everyone's story is different. And just because their story isn't what your story is, or the way you view things is different than the way they view things, doesn't make them a bad person, and it doesn't mean what they're trying to do doesn't create value.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for those.
Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful, man. So appreciate your time and your willingness to join us and just talk openly about all this. And I heard you say it. We'd love to have you back next year sometime and dig a little deeper.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And everyone in the comments, appreciate you being here as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks everyone for joining in and listening. And Jake, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Sounds good, guys.
Awesome. Have a good one.